Shall we get started, Vatsala?
Yes.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time today. We have a wonderful session planned ahead. But before we jump into that, let's start with a little bit about what ASCI is all about. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, it's the American Society of Engineers of Indian origin. And Kush, will you or Vatsala be showing the slides?
Kush, go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you, Kush. So here's what we're going to do today. We kicked off things earlier this year, and we exclusively kept this session for mentors and mentees to connect again. However, we decided it makes much more sense for us to share this with not just all ASCI members, but anyone who's an ally and who's probably also contemplating joining ASCI. So we'll start off with a quick introduction, what ASCI is all about, what MentorConnect is all about, what we can do for you, followed by a very special Fireside chat session. We have two wonderful guests. And while we conclude, we'll also create a little bit of networking for all of you present. All right, so what is ASCI? It was formed in the 1980s in Michigan. Now, some of our mentees weren't even born then, but from a vision standpoint, it stood the test of time. We wanted to create a network of technical professionals of Asian, Indian origin. And of course, all allies are always welcome. And the idea was not only to give them a platform to network and connect with each other, but help each other with career tips, advancement, provide opportunities for community service, and also create the right kind of technology exchange that today has become the backbone of what Silicon Valley and several other centers across the world stand for. We also have a motive of creating the next generation of scientists and engineers. Now, with that said, next slide, please. We have 4 pillars, and I'll just jump into it while the slide is moving. But our 4 pillars are the University Connect, MentorConnect. We have a lot of youth STEM initiatives. And I know I'm forgetting one. Pardon me, it's night out here where I am. But the last one is Engineering Tales. So showcasing the spotlight on a lot of folks who don't necessarily get the right kind of recognition all the time, but also it is an opportunity for us to showcase what is possible for generations to come. So that said, MentorConnect is the program that we launched earlier this year for about 25 odd mentees. And it's kept in small cohorts because we want it to be intimate. We want mentors and mentees to connect at a deeper level, have multiple one-on-ones. And the whole idea is whether you need career advice, whether you're looking to pick, one job out of multiple offers, whether it's about handling, team dynamics, which can sometimes not be easy, or even if it's something else. We provide a platform for all of you to come together and work with each other. Now, I always ask myself, why would mentors get into this? Well, I've heard from many a mentor, and they always say the same thing. They learn so much, and they also test their own knowledge when it comes to their mentees. One of them has even told me that she will teach me Snapchat. I won't call out her name, but thank you. I will get to learn a little bit and polish up my social media skills. So moving forward, who do we have today? Well, we have 2 amazing panelists. It gives me great pleasure, and it is my honor to introduce Rofin Paul, who's the CEO of Wipro Pari Robotics, and of course, Preeta Ram. She's a member of the board of ASCI and also a managing partner at Pier 70 Ventures. Welcome, Preetha. Welcome, Rofin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me start with Rofin. Apart from being the CEO for Wipro Pari Robotics in North America, he has helped build its operations, developed a strategic supply base to enable integration, and he's also focused on streamlining operations that has resulted in the company's growth. Now, what does Wipro Pari do? They work with key automotive manufacturers, and I'm sure he'll tell you a little bit more. But I just want to take you back in time a little bit. He graduated from the University of Pune with top honors. He's got with him nearly 3 decades of experience. So definitely use the networking session to connect with him, especially if you're interested in robotics. And of course, he's also undergone advanced management training from Yale as well as the University of Michigan. Now, a little known fact is, while Wipro Pari had a humble beginning, a small beginnings, it's amazing to see how they've turned themselves around and have 60% plus of the company's revenue, total revenue, coming from the North American market that Rofin manages. Now, I will ask Rofin a quick question. So Rofin, I know you love to travel. Can you tell me a little bit, and I know you've traveled a lot, what is your favorite place that you keep going back to?
Absolutely. First of all, it's great to be here today. As far as my favorite place to travel, I am an avid lover of nature. So I keep going to Switzerland, to Germany areas, and up north Michigan is actually as competitive as possible to the Germany, Switzerland belt. So that's my favorite place. I keep going.
That's awesome. Well, now I know where to ask for my next chocolate supply from Switzerland. But thank you, Rofin. And we're so glad to have you here. Our Fireside chat will be hosted by Preetha Ram. She's not only a member of the ASCI board, but she is a VC, an entrepreneur, a technologist, a woman in tech, and an educator. Gosh, Preetha, that's one too many, but it's amazing. She is a general partner today at Peer 70 Ventures, and they invest in innovations in the health tech market, creating impact in the health tech. We all know how important it is, especially in today's world, and of course, more important in the future. I loved something about her when I learned earlier on. She was the CEO of Open Study, a peer-to-peer online learning platform that enabled over 60 million global learners. And the idea was a peer-to-peer online community. Is that right, Preetha?
That's right. Yeah.
And gosh, how many awards have you won? I've lost count. But the one thing I can tell you, which I thought was fabulous, and you have to tell us or maybe show us a photo sometime, is Preetha was honored at the White House Science and Technology Department of Education. She is still known as one of the innovators in post-secondary education.
Stop. This is too much, but thank you so much. That's very kind of you.
And Preetha, you did your education. You started in IIT and then also did a PhD, if I'm not wrong, in chemistry from Yale, and also from Emory University, you did your MBA. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, it's been a long time.
At some point of time, I would like to ask you to help, especially the audience, understand PhD in chemistry, peer-to-peer learning, venture capital. Just help us connect the dots a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I think it's always been my passion to sort of poke around and solve problems. And early on in school and college, chemistry was that way because I could see there were problems that chemistry could solve. So I was fascinated by that. And then fast forward to my career as a faculty, and I was helping students, and I just love working with students. And their problem was, how do we get help at all times of the day and night, particularly at night, and faculty are asleep? And so Open Study was that solution, partly so that I could get some sleep at night and I wouldn't have to be answering questions. But also I knew there was a need and people like to connect with people. And then you fast forward all of that, and venture is a great way to really invest in the future. And you look at bright people solving problems again, and now you have the actual ability to help them help solve our problems. So I think that's kind of where it all goes together. But thank you for asking.
Awesome. That's awesome. And just like Rof and Preeta, I know you love to travel as well. Could you please tell the audience, what is your favorite place?
So like Rofin said, he started out with nature. I have a passion for history, maybe because I'm a science major, I go the other way. And so I find traveling to Europe very fulfilling. I kind of like, my favorite place has been Italy. You know, it combines food and culture and history and amazing people. So I've gone several times to Italy. So that would be my number one destination.
Awesome. I think we'll have a separate session with the two of you just on travel and, what sessions and which places our mentees can get to.
Mhm.
But I will leave the floor to both of you to talk a little bit about leadership, mentoring, and maybe take a few questions towards the end from our mentees and mentors online.
Yeah, well, thank you, Divya, and thank you, team. This has been great. So back here we are now, Rofin and I. This is the Fireside chat, and I'm just waiting for my fireside to inspire me. But while we get set up with the fire and the chatting, just want, oh, there it is. Thank you, Vatsala. This is amazing. So Rofin, it's really good that you and I can talk. Let me just adjust us. We could just talk about stuff. Now, you and I, we both come from a variety of different professional experiences. We've heard both you and myself. You, for example, I know have been in corporate cultures in Japan, in India, and now you're in the US where you're doing so well. I've been in academia and startups and now in a VC fund. So let's think together about our professional journeys, but in the context of today's topics of leadership and mentoring. I want to just start off by having us think about the one most important lesson that we want to share with our audience here on leadership. You know, for me, the lesson is about the importance of inclusiveness, that a good leader is inclusive. They create a safe space for diverse perspectives and opinions where people can share and be themselves. And I think of all the things that makes a good leader, that is it. But I'm interested. What do you think? What is the top lesson in leadership that you want to share that comes out of your professional journey?
Sure. The absolute number one for me is integrity. How a leader upholds his or her integrity, especially when you're pressured to the extent where your values are at a point where you could take decisions that either compromise or sidestep your values. How you uphold them, how you work along them to deliver with your team, and then how you build your enterprise, your organization, your society at large. I mean, how you actually function, right? For me, that is very core, and that actually gets into play when you're pressured.
I think that's amazing. Let's just push this topic just a little further. And we're still talking about leadership, but remember, but I think it's not only the mentors, but also the mentees who are leaders in their own ways and in their own culture. In a sense, the mentor, the leader creates a culture. A startup culture is very different, an academic setting, a corporate culture. Some of our audience is in startups, some in universities, some in other companies. A responsibility of the mentor or the leader is to help the mentee adopt the culture and also contribute to the culture. And at the same time, as a mentee, it's their responsibility to integrate, learn, adopt, adapt, grow, and also bring their viewpoint to the table. Where do you think, Rofen, culture plays in this mentor-mentee relationship? How do you think about this?
It's a very interesting question, because a mentor-mentee relationship is kind of changes its dynamics when you actually move from the eastern part of the world to the western part of the world. As I operated in the Eastern culture for a little bit before I moved here 2 decades back, I saw that there's a difference in the positioning, what a mentor would have versus what a mentee would have. It is, it is pretty known that, Eastern cultures are more, I would say, autocratic is not the right word, but it's more like you kind of follow the leader, right? You don't question the leader. You are generally in a follow mode.
Like a sage, he's the mentor being the sage. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, sage is the right word. It's like, it's you follow it, right? And and these are the 10 commandments, and you do it, and you'll be successful. As you move westward, as business evolves, as we move forward, we know in the last couple of decades, there have been, 2.0s and 3.0s, and the whole way business is done, the whole way the world operates is changing. And change doesn't necessarily mean, something wrong. So as we do that, you see that the questions are very relevant that mentees will put up. So it's as you move westward, I've seen that the mentors that are mentor-mentee relationships that are most successful are the ones where there's an openness. There's an openness even from a mentor perspective to imbibe those questions, think over it, ponder over it, allow those, and then come up with probably a different solution, probably that even the mentor was not privy to.
Yeah.
So
takes a bit of confidence. And what's the role of the mentor in making this happen?
And the biggest one is openness to new things, allowing communication. And I'll use this phrase, like we say, responsibility is to efforts and accountability is to results. So as a mentor, right, I'd like to follow the accountability path. And if you follow the responsibility path, it's like, we did everything, we want to do this, and the mentee did this. And finally, the alignment of goals, right, in a modified path may not happen, if you're going by a templated method. I don't know if I connected in that, but I'm more on the sense where let's do everything to align the success of both the mentor and the mentees. I always say that what's the difference between a coach and a mentor is where the success of the mentee is the success of the mentor.
Completely agree with that. I'm actually thinking that we've talked a little bit about the mentor's responsibility. We shouldn't neglect to mention that a mentee, of whom we have many here today, also has a responsibility in this relationship. And it is, if the mentor has empowered them, then it is their responsibility to bring to the table their goals, their willingness to learn, and their willingness to speak up. So in a sense, and I'm going to my next thought here, and you and I talked about this, Rofen, in many ways of thinking about it, there is an element of matchmaking in this relationship. And, we as Indians, we know all about matchmaking. We're very good at this. So we understand that it has to start with a personality match. I'll just put this as a match. As a mentor, I don't know about you, but I've had, frustrations very many times when mentees and I don't connect, as a personality, and we're kind of off in different ways. And I've often wondered if we can encapsulate or find ways to guide our mentees and to some extent our mentors on how they can achieve this good match. How does a mentor, and when a mentee is assigned perhaps by a company or some other ways, or by ASEI, how should they think about achieving a match? And then most importantly, what is the responsibility towards the mentor? And is there a moving on? Should they move on? So what do you think about it?
Yeah, again, great question. It's basically the fundamental for me is map your values, map your goals as a mentee and a mentor. A mentor, you know what you stand for and what your goals are. These two alignments from a mentor-mentee perspective, these need to be the primary basis of interaction. I would say in the first 1, 2, 3, 4 maybe interactions. Try to see alignment in at least 3 of the 4, and if those are happening, generally, then you get into a absolute relationship where the success of the mentee then becomes the success of the mentor. It's not a piece of advice that is given down like the sage gives it down, and the mentor goes, executes, and comes out with magic, right? So I believe it's absolutely fine in the first couple interactions that if both the mentor and the mentee feel that, well, this may not be the right match, to actually move on, look at the other mentor-mentee that out there, because just like all of us human beings, I mean, it necessarily matches. It's a complex interface, right? I mean, 2 great people may not necessarily be the right combination. So it pretty much is active in a mentor-mentee relationship as well.
I think to all of you listening in, we would absolutely empower you to move on if it isn't working for you. And whether you're the mentor or the mentee, it's less of a waste of everybody's time. Particularly your mentors are high-powered executives. They've got a lot of things, and if what they're saying doesn't resonate with you or help you achieve your goals, then it's not a good match. But I think what Rofin said is very important, which is he started out by saying both the mentor and the mentees should have a clear set of goals to start with. So if you don't go into this relationship without a well-articulated set of goals, what you want to get out of this, then it's not as effective. So I like it when I work with my mentees that we start out by creating a PowerPoint, which they're going to fill out at the end, a slide, not a PowerPoint, a slide, in which we write down, okay, what are your 3 goals for this relationship, for this mentoring thing? And then we'll come back at the end of 6 months or 2 months or whatever it might be, and let's fill it out and see if you have actually accomplished these goals. So anyway, I have one more question, and then we've got a couple of questions over there. I think we have some wonderful mentees and mentors here. And when I think back about this whole mentoring relationship, or when I became a mentor, I don't think there's any clear time that I said, oh, at this level, I started mentoring. I think it's kind of been ongoing, even as a very, very junior faculty. Obviously I had students who were a lot younger than me, or there were other faculty that were at the same level, and then you move on. So definitely for the academic side of things, I can say it's never too soon to start mentoring. But you've had a lot of experience in a corporate world. So you tell me, Rofin, do you feel that there's a point when it's too early for someone to become a mentor? What do you think about this?
I strongly believe that it's a skill, and it pretty much has no age bar. And a classic example is this: we were all in school and played different sport, or you were in teams. You naturally saw that there was a captain, there was someone who actually was the leader, who actually indirectly mentored. We probably didn't know what mentoring was at that time, but we
Yeah, have a word.
Yeah. So from that perspective, right? I mean, there are people who naturally have that ability to influence in the right fashion. So leaders, absolutely.
Yeah.
Leadership is with you. So from that perspective, very early on, there are, I've seen very young professionals that are absolute stunner mentors and influencers versus, people with a lot more experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that age is absolutely not a bar. I mean,
yeah, and I think there's always people that will benefit from your help and advice. And I would like to tell our audience here that it's always a give and take. You're not always taking. By being a mentor, our mentors are very generous and giving, and it's never too soon to start that. And it's karma, like they say, it comes around, you pay it forward. So never too soon for any of you to take an active role in helping someone else. And I know many companies have this notion of peer mentoring built in. And do you have any thoughts on how effective that is? What do you think of peer mentoring, as it were?
Again, that's an excellent idea. I've seen it work pretty well. Again, the key factor there is the mentor-mentee match.
Yeah,
that's as long as those are connected, aligned. I believe peer mentoring is an excellent exercise, and I think more and more organizations are picking up to that.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I actually want to take a quick pause here so we can look at some of the questions out there. And I'm going to start with Parthiban's question. Parthiban, if you're there, would you like to just unmute? Wait. Let me ask. Is that what you want to do?
Yeah.
And Ram is nodding his head, and I can't see Vatsala. Okay, Parthiban, go for it.
Yes, Preeta. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for your time. And my first question is, so this one. So as Robin and you talked about, like being integrity, and that's one of my personal value as well. So how to climb up corporate ladder with integrity. So apart from hard work, what are other skills that are needed? And as you might seen that you and Robin has climbed up corporate ladder. So what are other skills that are needed to be successful?
I'm going to turn this over to Robin, actually.
So of course, integrity, I value integrity as number one. The second part is be an inclusive leader. It's very important as you climb, as you start growing in your career, whatever you do, you got to be inclusive. You got to also learn to pull your team ahead of you as a leader. Many times, if you're trying to step over others and move up, right, this is something which will probably get you up to a certain point, but not beyond that. So from that perspective, we talk about competence, we talk about hard work. These are all the givens, right? I mean, you got to do these things to actually perform. The other part is, that's the difference between being a boss and a leader, right? You are actually, and there's a very classic picture of a cart being pulled, right? And the boss standing on top of it and whipping the team, right? And the other one is where the leader's pushing the cart. So we got to be that. And that's important. That's very important, where you are inclusive. You actually take the beat for your team.
I like that. I really like that. And I would say it kind of all comes up under soft skills. And I like to think of, when people ask you, when people talk about Sundar Pichai, they don't say that he was the, like slave driver. They all say what a nice guy he is. And I think there's a lesson in that, which is being nice, and under nice, we can put in all kinds of things, but being nice is its own reward. And so never feel that you have to be I won't bring any more names in, but we've got so many names in our corporate culture of people that weren't nice. But think of all the people that have made it because they were nice, and all their colleagues said, this person deserves the next promo and stuff like that. Okay. I see Vatsala has posted a lovely quote by Phil Collins: "In learning, you will teach, and in teaching, you will learn." Lovely. I love that as someone with the education background. If there are are there no other questions from the audience? Because Rofin and I can keep talking on forever. Maybe anything else, Divya, you would like us to cover? Because we do have a couple of other questions we could dig into.
Absolutely. Go ahead. I just have
Okay.
one question that's been burning because of your discussion here.
Yeah.
You talked about mentees moving on, the idea of the values coming together and the goals coming together. A lot of times mentees have a hard time closing out a mentor-mentee relationship.
Yeah.
With a coach, it's very easy to say, hey, this is a 3-month or a 1 month or whatever, a time-bound relationship. And there's an active goal that you're working towards. But what's a nice way to keep in touch, but to say, hey, because it frees up the mentor's bandwidth as well to take on other mentees. How does one go about doing this?
Rofin?
Again, the first thing is easier said than done, but the openness of having the conversation that as a mentee, you come to the table, having the discussion that what you set out to do is not happening for whatever reasons, put it out at the table. Similarly, if it's a mentor, obviously the same discussion. And we all are emotional beings, so that kind of sometimes triggers the wrong chords. But I think most of us, if the communication is put in a very apt fashion with the understanding that it is absolutely fine to move on. As you go about it and you talk about these, we set out to do 1, 2, 3, 4. We see that on 1 and 2 that we understand that it's not exactly how we want it. So we need to set out the performance of how this relationship moves, and if not, have that open discussion and go about it. I mean, I think there's no better way. It probably feels a little odd in the beginning, but I think it's better for both parties.
I think sometimes when it's not time bound, like you guys have a 6-month, and then at the end of 6 months, I think it's good for, let's say, the mentee to have this, and the mentee wants to move on. And let's say it's been a successful relationship. So if it's successful, you say, thank you so much. I really accomplished my goals. I won't take up very much more of your time, but I do hope we'll stay in touch. It's been super, super helpful. And then, it's kind of a closure on that. If it hasn't been successful, it doesn't matter. You can still say the same thing. Maybe not in such an extent, it's been really helpful, but I can, I really want to learn more about robotics. And so I'm actually going to go talk to Rofin, or something like that, but I do value everything you've said, and I hope we'll stay in touch, because why close that relationship on a bad note? Because everything comes around. It's a small, small world, and everybody knows everybody. So I would say, from the mentee's perspective, from the mentor's perspective, it's a little more tricky because you're in the position of power, as it were. So I would say, have an open conversation that, this really bugs me when everything I say, all the advice, all the time I spend, and you don't do anything about it. So I would say, this is what I say, it looks like some of the things that we're talking about aren't really matching up with either your interests or where you're headed, and something like that. So maybe you should actually talk to someone else like Rofin, who's doing robotics, and I don't know anything about robotics. So I'm not super helpful in that. So take a bit of that blame on yourself as a mentor, but give them an opening that you can gracefully exit. And the same works for you. Tomorrow, this person might end up being the CEO of Fang Robotics or Parry or Wipro or something like that. And so I think it's all the part of being nice. So I don't know, I've given a couple of scenarios for both the mentors and the mentees. And I see a question from Ram. How do you deal with a leader that you don't agree with? Did we cover this sort of, Ram? If you don't agree with what the mentor or the mentee, or you want a more corporate leadership, then we will turn it back to Rofin again.
Yeah, I think you could probably go to some of the specific questions from the mentees, but this was more from a corporate because, most of our mentees are early career.
Mhm.
And so we talked about in mentor-mentee relationship matching and how we separate or go forward. But, the basics was set up with integrity. And
Yeah.
so if you see someone you disagree with, just if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, Rofin?
So it's a very interesting and a quintessential problem that exists in our corporate or any business, right? I mean, there's always a difference of opinion, and it'll continue to be there. And how we work along with that is important. Now, how do you disagree with your leader? Is that my personal take on that always is. You disagree nicely, gracefully, lay the facts out there, and the leader continues to disagree. Make sure that you have your position cleared out, documented, discuss that, put your position, move on. Finally, if the leader is in the position of power and responsibility who has to own that decision, you go with it. But if it is a decision that actually is yours and the leaders try to influence you, which violates your values, then you obviously will stand up for it. As long as it doesn't violate values and it helps the business, I think we need to be pragmatic enough to see the leaders' views as well.
It's complex. It's pretty complex. But I think what I hear from you, Rofin, is that you disagree, you articulate, you don't get emotional, people like me, and then you commit. And if you cannot get the consensus around what you think, then you commit to whatever it is and you do it cheerfully. We differ on who the president should be, but when the president is here, he is the president or she is the president.
That is correct.
Thank you.
I have a question from Ranganath about robotics. And I think, Ranganath, if you don't mind, you could take that to the one-on-one, the group sessions. What do I call them? The
Breakout rooms.
Breakout rooms. Yeah, breakout rooms. And then you can talk to Rofin about that. And Parthiban now asks, Parthiban, do you want to just articulate your question again?
Yeah, sure, Preeta. So when it comes to, I'm an industrial engineer, so I have to deal with different support groups from manufacturing engineering to planning and supply chain and all those stuff. So some of my coworkers won't report to me directly. So it's kind of, I'm trying to understand how to build this relationships with them, as well as how to achieve the team's desired goals by making them accountable.
So this is something which is always seen in integrative management, right? You have departments,
right.
Trades, and that you have to integrate with. First of all, when you say coworkers, right? I mean, you have to align people to the problem, right? A lot of times people try to align others to the solution, right? Align people to the problems. Different I would say, you say departments, they may be looking at things differently, right? So whatever is your business problem, right? Or your problem when you're trying to solve, align them to the problem. They all will align differently. Also, put yourselves in their shoes always. See it from their side. For example, you're an industrial engineer, you're working with the layout engineer, you're working with, say, product. They all have unique problems themselves. Put yourselves in their shoes. Look at why they're saying what they're saying, and try to play that role where you understand both sides. Create a problem statement where all parties understand the problem. The solutions automatically start happening. Many a times, most of the people try to align people to the solution.
Right. Thank you, Rofin.
That's awesome. I was hoping for a couple of questions from the mentors, but let's give them some time. And in the meantime, let's just throw this open here, which is, what sort of difficulties do you think mentors face in this sort of relationship. They've given their time, they volunteered to be mentors. Let's kind of think about a few so that we can, open the eyes of our mentees here. What sort of friction points exist?
I think one of the key one is where you see that the mentee is not stepping up or taking the steps that
bugs me.
you called out, and for whatever reason they are just continuing to, I would say, for lack of a better word, slack at it. So that particular annoyance that comes in, articulating that in a smooth fashion, and then kind of not giving a slap on the wrist kind of deal, but telling them to come back on is a very tricky thing without kind of, because finally a mentor-mentee relationship, if it is within the organization or is within the same team, it's a little bit more easier, but if it's cross teams, it's trickier.
Yeah. I think I also find it challenging to work with people that don't show up for meetings, or you've allocated this time and maybe cancel at the very last minute. And I think that's a little disrespectful of anybody's time. It goes both ways. Sometimes mentors do that, sometimes mentees do that. But so that's another little friction point. And anyone else in the audience? Oh, okay. So that's another question about mentees. I think the other thing that is difficult is if the mentee doesn't articulate what they're thinking about it. Like, I would say under the umbrella of goals, because if you don't tell me what you're hoping to get out of this, do you want to just learn about the content, or do you want, to go to the next level up? Do you want to get up? Do you want promotion? Do you just want, to get another job at a different place? I mean, that might be a tricky conversation, but you never know. Because mentors, in particularly here, are not in your organization or academic mentors. So I think it's very challenging then to really give advice that's tailored and to you and personalized to you if I, as the mentor, don't know enough about you. Okay. There's a question from Kush. Should we address that question, or do you have anything, or does anyone else have anything more to add to this topic of the difficulties that mentors face? Okay, let's go to Kush. Kush, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, unmute yourself.
My question is that, sometimes I've seen mentoring being done with a group of mentees. So that way the mentor's time is more utilized, and so if one person doesn't show up, at least there is a group of people you can still mentor versus the one-on-one. I just want to get both of your view on what kind of mentoring you have done and where you have seen pluses and minuses of both sides of that.
Okay, well, I've done both. So as a part of a summer program, we taken 4 or 5 this time there were 6 mentees, interns, whatever. And there I have these group meetings, and then I have one-on-ones. And as you can imagine, 6 one-on-ones gets to be a bit more onerous, but I get help from my other team members. And I think it's different. There are things that I feel like communicating with the group as a whole. So there are, sort of more generic things. Maybe there are things about professionalism or something about the company and, goals and directions. But then when I'm doing more, professional development, talking about their careers and goals, then it's kind of more of a one-on-one, because that's obviously tied into a person. So I do both. They're effective in different ways. I think you get a closer relationship when you do the one-on-one. But that doesn't mean that the one-to-many is a bad thing. It can be a good thing. And I think what's really great is it creates a kind of a bonding between the mentees, because they all feel that they're at the receiving end of this conversation. And I think they get to hang out and feel that they're not alone in experiencing this problem. Rofin?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the group mentoring is very effective for the entry level folks who come in right from school and, generally who are coming into the workforce. So that kind of works where you're talking about generics, and I would almost call it coaching.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of broadcasting, you're telling people, what to do, and they're kind of generally getting it a little bit initial steps to, someone actually creating high level goals and then moving on. But when you go to a one-on-one, basically that's where you get more specific, and that's where you start making goals. And the real relationship between a mentor and mentee, I've seen get to a real success point is when actually there's an attachment of goals where the mentee's success becomes part of the mentor's success, right? That they're part of objectives. They are part of goals, right? Where the mentee's success somewhere gets attached to some objectives that actually the mentor is pursuing as well. And that's you can't have everyone do that, but the ideal mentor-mentee relationship, I believe, is when the mentor is successful along with the mentee.
Right. So actually, if that answers your question, Kush, I think it's both. It's neither one or the other, but each has its value. And I would say it would be good if you can do one or the other. And then, of course, you try to optimize the value of each of them. So you try to get to know the others in that team. They're your peers. You're going to be in a cohort or something like that. But I think the time is right now. Vatsala, should we do our breakout sessions? We have some time for that now.
Yes. And before we break out into our sessions, I think we should have Kush come in and at least thank. So,
can you see my desktop? Okay. So really want to thank Rofin, Preeta, mentors and mentees. This was a really very good discussion, fireside chat. Really got some good insights about mentor-mentee, matching, having clarity of the goals, why is the integrity important, and then being inclusive leader. So thanks again for all the insight both of you have provided. I'm urging all the mentors and mentee to take full advantage of this unique opportunity. And the reason for my initial question was the one-on-one is pretty rare opportunity for mentor-mentee. So ASEI has done a great job. So for the rest of the program, take advantage of that. And we really want to spread the word. So your personal and professional network, your friends, family, and your colleagues, tell them about the MentorConnect program, and then we can have a link into the Zoom chat on how they can connect, and then provide feedback at the end of this program. We want to be able to also at any time during the program, give us feedback on what is going well, what can we do better so that we can incorporate that into the MentorConnect program in 2023. So once again, thanks to all the mentees, mentors, Preeta and Rofin. Thank you.
And before anybody even starts to go, we have these breakout rooms between Preeta and Rofin, and I'm going to assign and open the rooms right now. So you will be taken to your respective rooms, and then we'll exchange the rooms for people. So go ahead and join the respective breakout rooms.
Vatsala, should we stop streaming to YouTube?
Okay.